Thanks for joining us. It's live with Miami's Community News. I want to welcome our guest, Boris Zhadanovskiy. Did I get it close enough? Pronounce it for us.
You've had a lot of practice in the last couple of times, but it's Zhadanovskiy.
There you go. All right. So, Boris, you've been an attorney for a while. All right. Tell us about the number one thing. Why did you become an attorney?
I wasn't smart enough to be a doctor. No, I'm just kidding. I wanted to help people, and I think in one of our previous interviews, this question was asked, and I'm sorry if I'm going to repeat my answer, but it's because the law is a foreign language to most people, and most people don't need to speak that foreign language until it hits them right in the face, it rear ends them, and they need to understand it. So attorneys go to schooling just like doctors to help people understand that foreign language and be there at that time when they need it. And hopefully that person will never need it again. But I always tell my clients, you're going to learn more about the law in these next couple of months or these next couple of years than you ever wished you knew. And hopefully it will just be cocktail conversation for you for the rest of your life and you'll never need it again.
Well, one of the things that we've learned is that it's a tool. You go to a doctor, you go to a plumber, chiropractor, lawyer, all right? Because when we need business help, all right, we go to lawyers and say, we need some help to understand our rights. Now, let's talk about car insurance and vehicle insurance, truck insurance, car insurance, because most people have car insurance and most of us misunderstand what we bought and our coverage.
And that is, in my eyes, the sad truth, because most people don't look at what they're actually paying for until they need it. And that's the last time that you want to look at it. Really, it's so incredibly important. And you said most people have car insurance. You know, if you drive the car in the state of Florida, it's mandatory that you have car insurance. Now, in the state of Florida, car insurance, the mandatory car insurance is minimal to almost non-existent, but it is mandatory. So everyone has it, and it's important to understand what you actually have, what each piece of it that you're paying for does in case something terrible happens, like a car accident, whether you're at fault or you're not at fault and somebody else is at fault, right? You need to know what your car insurance that you're paying for is going to do for you and what each piece of that car insurance puzzle is there to do, who it's there to protect, and who's going to be stuck with the bill at the end of the process.
So I was looking at my insurance coverage recently. I called my agent. I said, how much is about this increase? $49 a year. So why didn't you tell me about that? Right? And for whatever the reasons were that she didn't tell me, I was annoyed. I didn't need it, but I was looking it over. And so then we wonder, how many things do we think that we have that we don't, or the coverage isn't enough, or the deductible is there? And so would you think that people believe that they are adequately insured, underinsured, or overinsured? Is there some way that, with your years of experience?
Most people think, and actually scratch that. Have you ever heard the expression, I have full coverage?
Yes.
Yeah. What does that mean?
For the layman, it's like I have collision, and then I have if a body gets hurt. All right, that's this full coverage. All right.
You actually don't.
All right.
In the state of Florida, what full coverage is, it is property damage to the third-party vehicle that you hit if you're at fault. So that's property damage, and it is personal injury protection. And personal injury protection is why Florida is called, or some people call it, the no-fault state. Because personal injury protection, the first $10,000 of your medical bills will be cut in the case of a car accident or car collision, will be covered by your own insurance carrier, no matter who's at fault.
So we get penalized in the sense that it goes on our record that it's our doing.
I always say you shouldn't be penalized, and car insurance carrier shouldn't increase your rates if it's somebody else's fault, but they have ways of increasing your rates without increasing your rates. And how do they do that? They can potentially take away the deductions that you once had, like your safe driver, no collision, that indirectly increase your rates. So in a sense, yeah, you may be penalized even if it's somebody else's fault.
So if you're in a car accident, is there really a bill that is under $10,000?
In a small fender bender, sure, absolutely. I always say if you look at the ER, they'll charge you over $10,000. All right, if you're driving by an ER, at any of the local hospitals, then your bill will likely be over $10,000. So in most cases, that $10,000 does not go very far, and that's not just for medical treatment. That's also for your 60% of your reasonably lost wages as a result of a car accident. So into that $10,000, you have to fit 80% of your medical bills and your lost wages for however much time you lost as a result of a car accident.
So the lost wage part, is that part of the 10,000?
That's part of 10,000. 10,000 maximum.
Or then you have to do what? Then you have to sue the other person to try to get your money.
That is always an option. But if you have the minimal insurance, if you have the floor to full coverage, then what does the other person have? Who is at fault? And if he's also like you with those floor to minimums, then there's not much else really for you to get out of that process.
So let's say let's say it's your fault, and the claim that the other person sues you, and the claim far exceeds your coverage.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to you, the guilty party, financially?
So I wouldn't use the word guilty party, because guilty is for criminal cases, right? In the civil system, there's no guilty or innocent. It's negligent. So what happens to the negligent party? Well, you are personally responsible for any and all damages that you cause, whether they are property damage, whether they're physical bodily injury damage, or otherwise. And there's a thing called collectible assets. There's certain assets that you have that are considered by the law to be collectible, that are that could be attached by a judgment against you. So if you're an individual of means and have substantial liquid assets, bonds, shares, bank accounts, you should have insurance that protects you and your assets from potential judgment, right? Most people should have the insurance that is linear in a fashion to what their net worth is. That's kind of how most people in this society should gauge it. Because if you have something that needs to be protected, that's what insurance is for.
Let's say if you lend your car to somebody say, hey, can I borrow your car? Sure. They go to the store, mm-hmm. and a major tragedy happens. What happens to the car owner?
You're liable.
Right.
Under Florida law, your car is considered a dangerous instrumentality, which is an instrument that can cause great harm. So you, as the owner of that vehicle, have to be extremely selective in who you permit to use that vehicle. And if they injure someone, you are directly liable. And I'm sorry, it's a mistake. You are vicariously liable for their actions up to a pretty large limit. It's several $100,000.
Would that be as if you were driving it yourself?
As if you were driving it yourself.
And if somebody takes your car without permission, what's the law on that? And they're in an accident.
Well, like many things that I come in here to talk about, it's extremely fact specific. So how did they get possession of your vehicle? Did you go into a gas station, leave your car running with the keys in the ashtray? Did they steal? Did they rob you at gunpoint and take your car? Right. It is extraordinarily fact specific. If you left your car out to be taken, you could be potentially liable.
It's like the jewelry in the jewelry window with the door open, and somebody said, it was an open invitation. So we need to be careful on who we lend our stuff to.
Well, you should always be careful on who you lend your stuff to. But especially when it comes to cars or other, I'll call them dangerous instruments. But a car, as you can imagine, can cause great harm. right? And that's you look at the statistic of how many car accidents are in the state of Florida. Let's say a good portion of those are people lending their car to someone, or having the title on that car and letting them use it, nearly permanently. Just having your name on that title makes you potentially the owner.
So I know somebody who's driving down an avenue, he decides to make a left turn, car passes on left, and the guy making the turn got the ticket. He says, you were responsible for what happened because you did that. And in that case, the gentleman wanted $70,000. They wound up paying like $1,500 for a sore thumb, but they started at $70,000. And you watch how that system works. So if you're in a big car accident, right, and you're out of work, right, and you have real injuries, right,
Okay.
that's a lot of money, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe
Easily.
more.
Easily. Absolutely.
And so then the person that was injured goes after the other person to try to get their assets to pay their bills. And then if the other person doesn't have any, or they file for bankruptcy, then it's done.
So you have to look at what does the person that was injured have as part of his own protections, right? Insurance is not a one-way street. So there are, as I began by saying, there are different pieces to the insurance puzzle that need to be put together. So for anyone that's watching this, take a look at your insurance policy. Take a look at what's called the declarations page of your insurance policy that lists all of the coverages that are available that you as a consumer of the insurance policy are paying for. You will see on there the PIP, that's mandatory. You'll see on there the property damage, that's mandatory. But everything else is an elective or a selective. And one of those items is what's called UM, which stands for uninsured motorist coverage. And that doesn't just mean if the other person doesn't have any insurance. That just means if his insurance coverage that's available to the negligent party is not sufficient to compensate the injured party for the injuries that he sustained as a result of that other person's negligence, then your own insurance comes in, stands in the shoes of the negligent party, and pays for those injuries, or pays for that compensation for the time out of work, for the bodily injury, for the emotional trauma, for the pain and suffering. So that's incredibly important.
And you could put an amount on there, 250, 300, 500,000, $1 million for uninsured motorists. How does that work?
The one trick to it is you cannot have uninsured motorist coverage that's over and above the limits of your bodily injury coverage. And what is bodily injury coverage? That's if you hurt somebody else. That's if it's your fault in that accident, you injure someone. So you cannot, the way I explain it to clients is you cannot have coverage that protects yourself more than you're protecting other people.
So if you had $100,000 coverage, regular coverage, the most you could get for uninsured motorists would be an amount matching that of $100,000.
With some disclaimers, some asterisks, and some it depends. And the it depends is UM is a uninsured motorist coverage is a funny coverage that in the state of Florida you can stack. And what the heck does that mean? That means if you have more than one car on that policy, and they all have what's called stacked UM, and there's stacked or unstacked UM. If you have stacked UM, let's say you have two cars on that same policy, both have stacked UM, you now have $200,000 in uninsured motorist coverage, which admittedly is above the $100,000 that you have in the bodily injury, but you get the benefit of that stacking.
And how does health insurance play into all this, all right? Into your injuries that you have? You get in the hospital for a week, 2 weeks, 5 weeks, and you have health insurance, all right? How does that factor into this?
So I'm going to indirectly answer your question if you don't mind. The overarching topic is of course car accidents and car insurance, but any time there's an injury that is sustained in a car accident or a car accident occurs, there is almost all of your insurance policies could be at play that are available to you or that are available to other people. And what do I mean? Let's take an example of Joe getting into a car accident, and let's say he's within the course and scope of his employment with his employer. So now he has access to his workers' compensation insurance, and they're going to pay for his medical bills, and they're going to pay for his time off. He also then can sue or file a claim with the negligent third party, whoever hit him, and he can go after their automobile insurance. And if they have that bodily injury protection that protects third parties for your negligence, then he can make a recovery from there. He would have to, and this gets incredibly convoluted, as you can imagine, he would have to pay back a portion of what his workers' compensation paid out of his settlement with the third-party bodily injury protection. And health insurance works. So now getting to answer your question, health insurance works similarly. You have health insurance, they will pay for your injuries, whether you're injured as a result of a negligent third party, or if you're injured as a result of your own negligence. Right? Health insurance is not dependent on whose fault your injuries are. But here's where it gets interesting. In the case of a car accident where there is a negligent third party, where you would not have been injured but for somebody else causing you harm, let's say a rear-end car accident, your health insurance is still paying the bills, but they're entitled to get their money back from any settlement that you may have, because you would not have incurred those medical bills but for that negligent third party.
So as an outsider looking in, it rare is that these things are just in a vacuum by itself. There's this connection that can go 3 or 4 deep. So just to go over this again, if you have health insurance, you're in a car accident, your health insurance, you go to the ER, guess what? Your health insurance, it's going to cover what?
First $10,000 will be PEP.
Yep.
Right. That's going to be the primary insurance in nearly every single car accident. And if you go to the doctor after a car accident, say I've been in an accident, they will ask you for your car insurance, which is weird to most people, strange to most people. But that's because the first $10,000 will be from your car insurance carrier under this personal injury protection scheme that Florida has. After that runs
Did you
out,
say scheme?
Not to get political,
yes,
however you want to call it. The first $10,000 will be your personal injury protection. Once that runs out, then your health insurance will start picking up the tab.
So Boris, let's say we're in one of the ride sharing services, we get a big accident.
Mm-hmm.
How's that play out?
They have their own car insurance policy. In addition to that, if you have your own stacked uninsured motorist coverage, then not only could you get coverage through whoever Uber or Lyft has insure their riders, but you can also get coverage through your own policy in addition to that.
So when you say the driver insurance is one of the targets, is Uber also a target in that?
It depends on who's at fault.
Gotcha.
All right, if the Uber driver, the person that's driving you around, and I don't mean to call Uber out, any rideshare driver is driving you around and he's at fault for whatever happened in the incident and you're injured as a backseat passenger, then you go after Uber. If somebody else rear-ends the Uber car, and again, I keep using Uber, but if the rideshare driver did nothing wrong and they're sitting in a red light and he gets rear-ended.
So 5 years down the road, we have all these cars that are being driven by computers and an accident happens. How's that roll out?
I think then you're switching from and purely speculative at this point. I think then you're switching from a standard negligence motor vehicle accident to almost a product defect case, right? What defect in the software or the hardware on that vehicle caused the collision to occur? Right? Because there's no driver. The car wasn't distracted. It wasn't texting. It wasn't reading a book or trying to put on makeup in the morning. Right? Something went wrong with the product that caused injuries to someone else, and that would be a product defect case.
So during the pandemic, a lot of us got different habits, and so now that everybody's out and about, I've been noticing that the person in front of me at the traffic light, after it turns green, they're still sitting there. Before, people would be tearing, as soon as it turned green, they'd be. Then you realize that they're on their phone, they're texting. And so I'll put my phone down for the 30 seconds, right? But when when somebody is negligent like that, right? In the sense that they because they're paying attention to something different, and something severe happens, are the damages, potential damages to them, going to cost them more because they were on their phone?
So there is, to answer that question, there's two types of damages that one can claim as a result of a personal injury. Actually, I'll do three types: economic, so your medical bills, your lost wages, the hard damages, something that you can easily put a value on in most circumstances, right? Your medical bills are your medical bills. Your lost wages, what were you earning per an hour? How long how long were you out of work, or are you out of work for the rest of your life? There are people that can calculate those things. Then you have your non-economic, or what we call human damages, your pain and suffering, right? If you had to undergo spine surgery, your recovery was a week, you're in tremendous pain. No person can just come in and say that's worth X. Right? That's difficult. Those are human non-economic damages, as we call them. And then there's a third category that is a little bit less common in our practice, but certainly does occur, and those are called punitive damages, which comes from the word basically punish. They are there purely to punish you for your actions. In some circumstances, being distracted by a phone, texting could rise to the level where not only are you responsible for somebody's economic and non-economic, pain and suffering, medical bills, lost wages, but also you need to be punished for your actions. Those are rare, and the state of Florida, you don't just hand those out regularly in most cases. All right, there are certain standards and certain pleading standards, evidentiary standards that you have to meet before the judge will even permit you to plead those damages. I'll give you an example where it's easy to speculate that there could be punitive damages. That's drinking and driving. All right, if somebody went to the bar, made the conscious decision to become intoxicated, no one forced them, to drink. They made the conscious decision to get behind the wheel of their vehicle over the limit, and they injured someone, of course unintentionally. No, most people don't mean to injure someone else. There could and likely will be punitive damages, and that is separate and apart from whatever criminal charges would also be applicable.
For people that have not experienced or the knowledge of what drinking and driving can do, you ruin a whole family. And then the perpetrator, I knew somebody went to prison for 9 years. They're having a party, parents were there, boy goes out, he's drunk, he kills somebody. Essentially, he was like 23. He gets out, and it's yes, sir, to everything. It's yes, sir, no, ma'am, and everything. And so you have the tragedy that occurred for the death, and then you have the second travesty where he's lost a huge part of his life, all because he decided to drink and to drive.
Well, we're talking about rideshare. Call that Uber, call that Lyft, pay the parking ticket if you have to. It is never worth the risk that you are taking of ruining somebody else's life, ruining your life. There are plenty of single vehicle accidents. Somebody drives off the road, hits a tree, kills themselves, kills their girlfriend, kills their friends, or survives while everyone else passes, and they have to live with that plus the prison sentence.
So I'm sure there are cases that you've fought for your clients, and you've had this, when you've won, whatever that entails, that you feel this great sense of fulfillment that you've done this and you've battled this out, and that even if it wasn't all the money that you wanted, but you know that you proved the point, and then you have some compensation for those people. Without disclosing who it is, have you had a case like that where you feel really super about it?
So yes and no. And the reason for that is the cases where the people truly deserve even a fraction of what you were able to achieve. They are bittersweet, because those are the people that have had their lives uprooted, that have lost a loved one, that have lost a limb of themselves, that have become paralyzed, quadriplegia, these terrible, terrible things. And they would give all the money back. They would bankrupt themselves. They would give away all their earthly possessions if you could restore them to where they were before whatever happened. And even though you feel, some pang of validation that you did a good job and no one else could have done this for them, no one that truly deserves it is happy with the result, and they shouldn't be, because it's not fair that the only thing our system can do is compensate them monetarily for some of the worst things that can happen to them.
So I guess the great lesson is make sure we pay attention. We don't drink and drive, wear a seatbelt, be very cautious because of the pain that causes to everybody that's there. So tell us about your law firm that's in Palm Beach areas.
So we are, well, first of all, the law firm name is Cersei, Denny, Skrull, Barner and Shipley.
Perfect. It's right on the video.
Yeah,
right
and they can't fit my name because they can't afford the letters. It's too many. We are extremely specialized. So you see some other law firms that say, we do HOA disputes, we do criminal, we do DUI. Oh, and by the way, we also do personal injury. We have been doing personal injury from our inception. We are specialized. Every single attorney in my office, which is 30 plus at this point, is specialized in representing injured victims that have been hurt due to the negligence of somebody else. We do not represent the insurance companies, and we do not represent defendants. Right? We represent the injured victims in basically any way that you can receive an injury. We've handled one of those cases. Plane crashes, train crashes, boating injuries, cruise line injuries, zip line injuries in the Caribbean, helicopter crashes. Of course, your run-of-the-mill car accidents, medical malpractice. We do one thing, and we do it extremely well. And we've been doing it for a very long time, to the point that we have brand recognition with nearly every single defense law firm that's doing it on the other side.
One of the things that people want, they want to be able to have confidence in their representation. They want to feel they're being taken care of, and that somebody knows their name, right, and knows their story, because that's certainly part of the healing process of, like, I'm going to figuratively vomit on you, all right, and you got to get through all this stuff, get to the point to where, okay, this is how I think that we can help you. And that's what people want. That's why when people go to doctors, sometimes even before they see the doctor, they're feeling better because they're going to resolve this.
And I hate using this platform as a commercial, right? That's not the reason that I like doing this. I like doing this to come in and educate people on that you should have uninsured motorist coverage in case of a
Yes.
terrible car accident, or the other topics that we've spoken about. But that's the one thing I'm most proud of with our law office, is you get the human connection, right? If you call and you say, hey, I want to speak to Boris Zhadanovskiy, first of all, kudos to you for pronouncing my last name. But second of all, you're going to get Boris.
Yes.
You're going to speak to him. And if I handle your case, you're going to have a direct line to me. You're not going to have 4 levels of separation, and the attorney only shows up at your mediation, right? You'll have a personal connection from day one. And I've had the pleasure of representing people in different countries now, Canada, Ireland, Switzerland, and we communicate via Zoom. We see each other face to face on a regular basis.
And that is an amazing process that occurred mostly in the last couple of years. Certainly it was growing then. And 2 years ago, 10 million people, now 600 million people are communicating via video, when that didn't happen before. So it's certainly another way to stay connected. As we get ready to wrap up, almost everybody has car insurance. What are some of the questions that a consumer should ask of their agent, right, their insurance company, as far as their coverage?
Well, first of all, I'll answer that question. What is my insurance doing to protect me and my loved ones? Because the mandatory minimums do very little.
You know, when I get done, I'm going to call my agent. I'm increasing my insurance for sure.
You know, when I started doing this work, you know, I didn't know what each piece of the puzzle did, and it's too often that I talk to a potential client that's been injured due to no fault of their own. They say, I have great insurance. And you look at their policy, and they do have great insurance if they were at fault for something. But that has nearly no protection for themselves due to the negligence of somebody else. And I think that is criminal.
Yeah. So one of the things that we realize as we get older, if somebody attacks you or somebody runs into you or shoots you, they're not just hurting you, they're hurting your whole family.
Absolutely.
Right? They're hurting your children, your grandchildren, your wife, your sister, your brother, and all those people. So it's important that people understand what they have and to make sure that they're covered, because when they're time of need, they're going to wish they had. I can tell you that 20 years ago, we bought long-term insurance because our father was pretty bad off. And I didn't know how important it was until I saw what occurred to somebody else. And that was to my father and the finances there. So certainly people need to be adequately insured and look at themselves. Is this going to protect me and my family in case of some major tragedy?
In case somebody else is at fault for, you know, that drunk driver, that texting driver, you know, it's great to protect other people, but also it's important to protect you and the people in your vehicle, the people in your home. You know, there's a saying when it comes to real estate, right? Location, location, location. Yes. You know, if I had to make a moniker like that for car insurance, I would say uninsured motorist, uninsured motorist, uninsured motorist. It doesn't have the same ring, but equally as important.
Okay, we're going to wrap up here. I'd like you to talk to some young man or woman that's thinking about a career, and talk to them about a career, perhaps in law, maybe something else, about some of the reasons they might want to consider that. And we're going to look straight ahead at this camera. Andres, straight ahead? Okay.
So the great thing about the practice of law, and as I mentioned, my practice is extremely specialized, and I do one thing and I do it well, but there is an attorney in every single Fortune 500 company. There's an attorney that probably helps this office, you know, community newspaper when they need help. There's a real estate attorney that's helping people buy houses. There is a insurance coverage attorney that is there when somebody's health insurance doesn't cover the bill that they should cover. There's an immigration attorney that's helping people, you know, rightfully get into this country and get all their immigration papers filled out, who, you know, my family personally used when we immigrated from Russia. There is just so many different things and so many different directions that you can go with in the practice of law. And some people that get a law degree don't spend a single day practicing law. They chose to do it so that they can understand it, to better their business, you know, to help their loved ones with their estate paperwork, or to do, you know, any number of things. So I wouldn't look at, you know, the billboards for the personal injury attorneys and say the law is not for me, because that's what the law is. The practice of law is just so much more than one specialized thing like personal injury and car accidents like we were talking about today. So my one piece of advice, don't think it's cubbyholed into one specific thing.
Terrific. Boris, thank you very much for your time. And if people want to find you all over the internet, they can go and search. Say the name of your firm one more time.
I hate doing it.
Okay.
Searcy, Denny, Scarola, Barnhart, and Shipley.
There you go. You can find you all over Google out of Palm Beach. Boris, thank you very much for being here. Folks, I appreciate your time. Remember, this is live with Miami's Community News. Have a great day and be safe out there.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.